Call meeting in order. Roll call, please.
Legislator Hathaway.
I would be here.
Legislator Berkler. Here. Legislator Burns.
Yep.
Legislator Gilbert.
Here.
Legislator Chartrand.
Here.
Legislator Morahan.
Here.
Legislator Kulzer.
Here.
Legislator Osborne.
Here.
Legislator King.
Here.
Legislator Dahlhoff.
Here. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless. The 6/1/2021 board meeting minutes have been distributed, and if there are no amendments or corrections, they stand approved. Report of the Finance and Rules Committee for Rule 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance and Rules Committee has met and they recommend to waive rules to act upon late resolutions.
Need a motion? Great. Second by Rob. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Privilege of the floor. Is there anyone here that would like to make any comments? If not, at this time, we'll leave that open. Presentation of petitions, communications, and notices.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Village of Lowell Mayor submitted a letter to the Board of Legislators outlining the Phase 2 upgrades at their sewer plant and asking the county to waive the $20 surcharge for sludge. Schuler County submitted a copy of their letter to New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo explaining the devastating effects of Senate Bill S-7196 and Assembly Bill A-6762, which seeks to impose liability on law-abiding businesses and individuals for the criminal misuse of firearms. An email was received from Mr. Aaron Ross, who asked the Board of Legislators to raise the smoking age to 25, citing the effect will galvanize the tobacco 25 movement and save thousands of lives. That's the end of the report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Reports of county officers and departments.
Legislators received the monthly treasurer's report, second quarter bed tax report, and highway and solid waste June audit reports. That concludes the report.
Thank you. Reports of standing committees. Tom, would you like to start off with finance and rules?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to authorize County Attorney Joan McNichol to contract with Larson Engineers to provide professional consulting on the production of the county solar array and determine any outstanding monies due to the county from Green Skies and/or National Grid at a cost of $5,000.
Moved by Tom, second by Phil. Any discussion? Dick?
I'd like to enter into the minutes the amount of work that one of our legislators so happily put into bringing this to the attention of us so that we could look into this and try to get this money for the county.
Well, I thank you for that, but I have to say that if Eric hadn't had it in one of his reports at one time, and then Larry had said, Phil, does that sound right? I said, no, it didn't sound right. So that's what prompted it. So those two need to be recognized as well.
But thank them for bringing it to your attention.
Well, they threw it in my lap. Just kidding, just kidding. Not sure.
That's fine.
Thank
You would have went nowhere without you, so.
You're impressed with these spreadsheets, Mr. Chairman.
you.
I would like to add one thing to that. Joan and I talked to Green Skies on May 11th, and the May production was the second highest since we've had that array. The first highest was the first full month in 2018, and then the next one was this previous May. So obviously, they sent us spreadsheets that were even better than mine, Larry. And they acknowledged that they had a bigger loss than what I had been shown. So they're acknowledging the loss, and evidently they have done something to correct the situation, because that was some serious production they had in May. I haven't seen June yet, but I'll know that shortly. Anyway, I just wanted to add that.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Tom? Thank you, Tom. We'll move on to Jerry with General Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 4 motions. I'll make the first one, motion to authorize Buildings and Ground Supervisor Matt O'Connor to put out an RFP for driveway repair on Osceola Tower site.
Moved by Jerry, second by Andrea. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, second motion to authorize Highway Superintendent Timothy Hunt to put out an RFP for snow plowing services on all county-owned parking lots.
Moved by Jerry, second by Dick. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Show Andrea opposed. Motion carries.
Motion to authorize Planning Director Cassandra Buell to put out an RFP for housing needs assessment.
Moved by Jerry, second by Bill. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, motion to waive $20 ton surcharge fee on waste sludge for the village of Lovell with respect to phase 2 upgrades for the sewer plant.
Moved by Jerry, second by Dick. Discussion.
We've done this before.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank
Any
you.
questions for Jerry? Greg?
Since this is probably better under general services, I'd like to make a couple motions for board action. I'd like to make a motion to authorize County Attorney Joan McNichol to prepare and submit appropriate RFPs for the removal of any hazardous or non-hazardous materials from the Turner Brick Block building after receipt and review of the testing results performed by EPA.
Moved by Greg. We have a second. Second by Lisa. Discussion. First off, we are going to amend
He has a
the,
second motion.
I have a
for Dan.
second motion.
For Dan.
You can only do one at a time, right?
Yeah.
yeah, but
Should have done the first.
my point is, yeah, do we want to do the RFPs or do we want, I suppose we would have Dave draft the RFPs and then we would
Yeah,
formalize them?
they would assist and formalize it and cover all the
That's motion
specifics.
2.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll do the motion number 2 then.
Well, wait, we gotta vote on this one yet. So, any other discussion?
Yeah, I got a question. Are we waiting on stuff for, from other, groups?
We still have to have a formal letter from the EPA advising us of
The
the,
EPA is going to do a formal written report on the 24 tests that they did on the site with everything down. They've had some informal discussion with the mayor and some others from the village and town, but they will put it into a formal report so that we know what exactly they found, if anything, whether or not it's hazardous, whether or not any hazardous material is in just a limited location, so that we know what kind of RFPs and what kind of assistance the village and the county and DANK will put together to try to have it removed and cleaned up.
Well, and I got one more question. Till we hear back from them, do we know what we can send out for an RFP?
No, and that's what Greg has said, that subject to what we receive from the report from the EPA.
we can't come up with a plan until they give us the guidelines that we have to operate on.
But we want it ready. go, basically.
Right.
Because so far, they've come up with 12 test results, and they're all negative for asbestos. Basically, the brick, there's 12 more out there. The town supervisor, Jane Gillette, has been in contact with the EPA person twice now, and she will get her report out ASAP so that we can get this going. It's just a tremendous mess. So far, the bricks came back negative, so.
But
that's
we
good.
need a formal statement
Right,
saying
I
that there.
understand that.
Because the next step is you have to go to DEC and get a beneficial use determination in order to leave them on site, so.
So what you're trying to do is get this moving so we don't have to wait till our next meeting in
Right, correct.
August.
Right. The longer
When
it
we
sits,
get it,
the
we'll
way
be ready to
to
go
go.
for the RFP.
Right,
Not before, but
right. After,
when we have
after
all the
it's ready.
information we need.
Yeah, we'll get her to go.
All right.
Because it looks like, possibly there won't be much problem and possibly even our own people can do it, which would cut the cost quite a bit. That's, to have it ready to go, because it's a terrible mess up there. It's actually almost into the street. That's how close it is. And people are going on there, kids are going, taking bricks and building ramps and jumping their bikes off it.
Who's gonna own that after we clean it up? Or before we
I
clean it
would
up?
assume we put it on the,
It's gonna go on the tax owner's property bill, and then we will probably end up owning it at a foreclosure.
any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll get the second one. Should have been the first one, I guess. Motion to amend the February 2nd, 2021 contract with DANK to authorize professional assistance in creating the appropriate RFPs for the removal of materials from the Turn Brick Block Building, assisting in the bidding analysis and recommendation. Should have been first, but it was second.
At what cost?
Moved by Greg,
Well,
second by Dick.
I think we already have that contract, don't we?
The original contract, they could receive up to $5,000 for the first phase. We have a credit to us, because they haven't used it all up because the fire happened. We have a credit of about $2,300. I think they're estimating this phase could run about, again, depending upon what kind of RFPs we have to send out and how many of them for different kinds of work, based upon hazardous, non-hazardous. It could be about $7,000 to $8,000 total.
I got no problem with it. I was
Yeah.
just curious.
So we have credit, and in fact, in that original resolution, 7,000 of it was to go for the structural analysis, which was never done. So that funding
So
is still there.
Okay.
We almost got enough there, so.
Yes, right.
Anything else? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Carries. Okay, move on to Andrea with Health and Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a motion, and it is a motion to spend up to $5,000 to make social media videos about mental health issues with funding to come from the community services budget lines.
Moved by Andrea, second by Lisa. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Andrea? Thank you, Andrea.
I would just like to say that I hope we use individual people in these videos and not so much people with a label.
Are you volunteering?
Yeah, I could. I could, whether it's counselors, but I think people understand a regular person if we can get people to do that.
Makes sense. Okay, moving on to Dick as the board's rep on the hospital board.
Yes, Chairman, I've got a couple of things. First off, we got a briefing at our meeting about the CNAs and the LPN recruitment process and the new wage structure that I'm sure people have seen already in the newspapers and stuff for our CNAs. And I want to note that what the CNAs do is very important, very needed. And as far as I'm concerned, very hard work. I personally don't think I could do that day in and day out. We were having no luck at holding CNAs. And money's only a piece of it, but it's a piece that wasn't there, and now it is, so we'll see what that does. Since that was announced, we've received 28 applications, which is a total of 24 CNAs and 4 LPNs, respectively. And some of the other hospitals are following suit a little bit, so we're gonna still be a little bit ahead of them, so that should help. And we've got 2 more CNA classes going this year. We're having Jessica Skiff and Michelle Prince assist in the interview process because of the potential size of the candidate's class. And if this works, it'll create a better work-life balance for the staff, because right now there's a lot of overtime being worked and a lot of personal time that they need for their families being missed because they're working a lot of overtime. Then we also had a briefing on the surgical pavilion and our capital project. We're supposed to get a question and answers from the certificate of need unit by DOH on this project. And July 29th this year is the key date for this project, because that's when the certificate of need will be reviewed by Public Health Council. He also shared with us that Lewis County General Health Systems is a critical access hospital. Recertification has been achieved retroactive to July of 2020 through December of 2023. Work still has to continue, however, on the primary and secondary road definition for critical access hospitals. We're working with Elise Stefanik and our other government elected officials to get that done. The board approved that Jerry Kerr, the CEO, can enter into an agreement with Whit Kiefer for the recruitment of a new Chief Operations Officer for Lewis County General Health System. Michelle Prince is retiring in November of this year, and this individual will replace that part. And then there's no Board of Managers meetings in July or August. However, our committee meetings like we have here will continue through July and August. That concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Dick? Thank you, Dick. County manager report, Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep it quick. The solid waste project is moving right along. If you go by there, you'll notice that the new road is cut in that we'll be using to basically the new traffic flow. So that's been done by Tim's department at the highway. They did a wonderful job. The foundation for the new building has been dug, and you'll start seeing concrete and steel this week. So they're moving right along, still on pace for an October completion. You may have seen on the news that we did have an issue with a road on River Road in the town of Harrisburg. We were actually working on, there's 2 twin bridges there. Both are wooden bridges, and our crews were working on the second bridge this summer, and we had some consultants there, and we asked them to take a peek under the first bridge and take a look at it, and they found some things that they felt were not so safe. So Tim will have a full report on that issue for the committee meeting on the 19th, but we have a pretty good solution, I think, lined up at this point, and I think it'll all work out for the best. But for now, that road is closed for that portion that has the bridge on it. You should have each received your 2020 audits. They were in the mailbox. I see most of you guys have grabbed those. We once again were issued an unmodified opinion, which is a clean bill of financial health. Every year that I've been here, we've been given an unmodified audit. So kudos to Eric and his team, and Cassandra and everyone that audits, and all of our financial staff throughout the county. They're clearly putting things where they belong. We will have the auditors here at our July Finance and Rules Committee meeting. So they'll go through the audit with you guys and they'll be available for any questions. NISAC, this year, their fall conference is going to be in Syracuse, which is good news. So September 13th through the 15th, if anybody wants to go, we certainly have funds in the budget for legislative travel expenses. So if anybody's interested, please let Mayor Cassandra know. We can get a complete list of folks that want to go down to Syracuse the 13th, 14th, and 15th. And then the last thing on my list is that I talked to Matt earlier today, and I talked to the district attorney. They're done using this space for grand juries, and so we'll be putting your configuration back to what you're used to in August, so nobody has their back to anybody. So I figured you'd be happy to hear that. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Questions for Ryan? Thank you, Ryan. Oh, I'm sorry, Dick.
Yeah, Ryan, there was a question about the meeting location for either August or September. Is that still, you got any update on that?
Yes, we should be in West Leiden. Do you know which month?
I don't know, it's whatever you guys want to set it, but the broadband should be sufficient up there.
So we're good with the site. We're gonna be at the fire hall. We just, whatever you guys want to do for a location.
Okay, thank you for that.
Or, I'm sorry, whatever you want to do for month. Location set for month.
Would you like us to discuss it? Yeah.
Doesn't make any difference, whatever it's going to be for.
That work for notices, John?
Yes, that's plenty of time.
September.
Need a motion.
Yeah, they reached out.
We need a motion to do that too.
They have,
Bill makes it.
Connor was talking to the fire department.
okay.
Okay, so who's making the motion?
Dick made the motion, I'll second it.
Okay. Moved by Dick, second by Phil. Any further discussion? To have the meeting held in West Leiden in September.
Are we gonna rank the bus?
That would be appropriate.
We can.
We got a bus driver, so
Used to be.
we should be good.
Used to be.
I think.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
You gotta come halfway.
Okay, move on to the county treasurer report. Eric, please.
Yes, thank you. I provided you a written report. I'll add a couple of notes to that. Sales tax receipts, as you see, continue to be strong. We did have some other collections late in June and early July, and those also strong. We are 24% over where we were last year through those late June and July collections. About over $7 million to date through the first 6 months of the year. And cheering, Bill?
Oh, I know.
It's a great trend to see, definitely.
It certainly is.
I wanted to note our health insurance fund cash balance. You can see on there, we have decreased quite a bit since the beginning of the year, which again is kind of a planned decrease. That balance had been creeping, so we're trying to bring that back down to a more manageable number. Ryan noted or commented on our auditors coming in the month of July, so I think just a couple of notes from myself that, I mean, it's a lengthy audit report, so you can't get through it in 10 minutes. You could, but there's a lot to absorb there, so if you get some time, do take a look at that in advance of their presentation. And I see those really as a good opportunity for you, to learn a little bit about all the paper that's there and ask them questions, and definitely hope you will do that. They will tend to go through their presentation pretty quickly, but don't hesitate to ask them questions and see what else you can dig out of that information. We are planning in the month of August to have 3+1, the investment consultants, come and make a presentation to the Finance and Rules Committee also. We've been working with them actively over the last about 11 months now. It's going very well, and I think that will be an interesting report for you also. And 2 notes I would give you on the federal American Rescue Plan funding. The county did receive our initial share, I think about 3 weeks ago. I was surprised by the turnaround. I think they, commented that it would come within a couple weeks, and it did. So we received a little over $2.5 million. The second 50% will come a year from now. So now we need to continue to move forward with documenting the need and then further reporting to justify those funds. And I think I included you on an email that our audit firm is doing a webinar presentation this Friday for focus on towns and villages and their ARPA funding. I don't have the list with me, but we've had good response to that. I think we're got probably, I would say, 8 to 10 towns and villages at least represented, probably close to 20 people who are going to be participating so far. So
Diana was appreciative of that.
sounds good. I've definitely gotten good feedback. If you have any question, if one of your towns or villages is not replied, let me know. They won't all participate, I'm sure, but they've been responsive so far. That's all I have.
Questions for Eric?
Eric, on the health insurance fund balance, when we give the employees and the county a break, how much does that take out of the account?
I won't be able to give you the exact off the top of my head break, but I think
From
employer portion, I think county and hospital is close to $1 million.
Okay.
Employee share, I can't quote that one. It's less than that.
Less than $1 million.
It's significantly less because we're about.
The breakdown is 75-25,
Right.
so it's $1 million. It would
Yeah.
be $250 for the employees.
Yeah,
About $1 million,
that's probably in the
2.5.
ballpark. So, yeah, again, the county and hospital employer share is close to $1 million.
Are we planning on doing another month
Not planning on another one this year.
this year?
Per current discussion. And I don't know, given the balance that we would recommend that at this point, but we'll continue to
Because at 6.3, we were looking at 5 being a good round number.
right. And our committee continues to talk about that. I think the amount that we've decreased it this year has been relatively aggressive. So I don't think we would recommend another month, but like I said, we'll definitely continue to monitor that and make sure that we're getting towards that goal.
Our, just to add to that, our actuaries and Excellus, who we work with, feel that there's some healthcare slack in the market still from the pandemic. So a lot of people put things off. And so what we're thinking is that you'll see this balance go down even more over the next few months
Somebody else
because
suck it up.
a lot of our folks have probably avoided healthcare settings during the pandemic. And as they feel more comfortable, they'll start going in again. So we'll keep an eye on it and see where we are. When we start doing budget in like September, October, we might talk about budgeting another, putting in the budget another holiday for next year. So.
Just looking at Christmas. Be a nice time, give it something.
Jerry?
I guess I had a question. For your 2.5 million, you said you were getting what you can spend it on. Is there a lot of restrictions or is it pretty broad?
I'd say the guidance is broad. I mean, we do have to justify, there are certain categories of how we justify it. And then, as you've seen, the programs that we have outlined, in general, will all fall under the guidelines. Again, we are going to justify it in one manner, looking at revenue losses. And then I think the programs that we're intending to use it for all fit within the guidelines also.
Because the villages and towns have got a pretty narrow window, it looks like.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a little narrower. Probably the biggest one for them, and Ryan could add to this, is infrastructure. I wouldn't be surprised if most of them will use that.
I think towns will struggle because many of our towns don't have water or sewer. So, they can use it on streets, sidewalks, that type of thing. There's still quite a bit of debate on that. My opinion is the feds have left some areas intentionally broad. They want people to spend it, but there's one category that's pretty broad, it just says economic development. I mean, you could argue a lot of things improve the community economic development of your town, so, you know, those will be good questions for the auditors to ask.
Thank you.
Good. Report of the Finance and Rules Committee for Rule 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance and Rules Committee reports that they have examined the claims presented for payment in the total amount of $1,056,233.75 and recommend that they be audited and allowed for the amounts claimed.
Need a motion? Ron, second by Jerry. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carries. So moving on to resolutions. You have a list of what we need to pull from the slate.
Yes, so we will be pulling 140 out of the slate, number 147, and number 167.
Anyone have any others? If not, I need a motion to pass the majority of them as a slate. Moved by Ron, second by Greg. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, resolution 140 is auditing and allowing claims in the amount of $1,056,233.75.
Moved by Bill, second by Greg. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Legislator Gilbert,
Yes.
Legislator Morahan,
Yes.
Legislator Verkler,
Yes.
Legislator Osborne,
Yes.
Legislator Hathaway,
Yes.
Legislator King,
Yes.
Legislator Burns,
Yes.
Legislator Chartran,
Yes.
Legislator Kalzer,
Yes.
and Legislator Dahlhoff.
Yes. And that carries. Next is 147.
The next one is 147, resolution adopting county vehicle use policy.
Moved by Jerry, second by Andrea. Discussion.
Yeah, I had, back in the back for $3 a day, take a vehicle. That doesn't seem right.
So Andrea had asked, came in earlier and asked me that question, we looked it up, so we had originally taken that from Greene County, another county that had a similar policy, but Greene County, in fact, got it from the IRS, so it is the IRS rate, for this commuter rate.
So essentially what we're doing, a person takes a car home, depending where they live. We're actually paying for the fuel and stuff like that. It's $3 a day.
Well, in insurance,
And insurance, wear and tear on the vehicle and everything else.
oil changes.
So I guess my concern is then why isn't the value of the vehicle, they're not having to drive back and forth to get to work? What the cost is. $3 a day is,
Not gonna cut.
well, we don't even break even there.
Well, I'm not sure.
And you guys pay 56 or 50 cents a mile when, like you used to, I drive my vehicle, so there's a big discrepancy there.
I'm not sure if I'm following your question, but let me explain how I think that works, and everybody else can chime in too. If they take one of our vehicles home, what the $3 a day is an amount, IRS established amount that we report to the IRS as a benefit to them. So instead of them driving their vehicle, they got a benefit by driving our vehicle, and we have to report that to the IRS. So it becomes an additional income that they get taxed on.
Right, but it's worth more than $3 a day.
I can't argue with that, but that's the IRS
Why we
allowed amount.
even doing it then?
We can't put our own amount down. Is that illegal? Or legal?
I'm not giving you a hard time, I'm just trying to understand.
how
Because the thing is,
you're thinking of that.
originally when we put this together, and I may be thinking wrong, we didn't want the cars to go home and stay all night and have to use something, because people shop out and they do this and that. And as far as I'm concerned, when they're home, we're not watching them, so they could be using them for more than traveling back and forth.
Yeah, so again, I'm just
And I know that
thinking,
Schlumberger used to furnish cars, and engineers that had those cars, but theirs used personally were paying $600-700 a month, or getting taxed at that rate.
so again, I'm just thinking out loud here. So again, there's two things going on here. They're driving one of our vehicles and we're incurring costs for that, no doubt about it. And the cost is likely more than $3 per day
Right, if they're not working, why?
if they're not.
Well, to get to and from work, maybe I'm looking at it wrong too. But the thing is, if it was the other way around, they'd have to use their personal vehicle to get to work like everybody else does and to get home. Well, most vehicles, even my wife's vehicle at 30 miles to gallon, it's gonna cost me 2 gallons of gas to get home. So that's $6.
But Jerry, in order to take the car home in the first place, they have to meet the parameters of this policy. They have to have a legitimate reason. So, that's only the rate, and I'm not sure we can change that.
No, we can't change that rate and yes, that's just a piece of this policy is,
In order to
I'm
take a
just
vehicle,
asking.
well, in order to take a vehicle home, they still have to meet all the criteria that's in this use policy.
But this is gonna be, that's based on, correct me if I'm wrong here, maybe I'm misunderstanding this, that they gotta get permission each time they take it home. It's not a blanket policy where it stays home all the time.
There's 5, 6, 7 employees that are given blanket permission in here. Everyone else is gonna have to go through the process, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we have to read it in its entirety, and Ian, jump in if you want, but the
No,
IRS
well, I
provides
read the whole
three,
thing.
well, Jerry, just a second. The IRS provides 3 options in addressing valuation and taxation of employee-provided vehicles. The next thing that you're reading are 3 options, so you have 1, 2, or 3, I believe, for options. Is that not sort of what that's saying? Now, how you choose which one, I'm not sure, but it's giving you 3 options. But that's how I'm reading it. And you have to first be a 24-hour commuter use category person, it says in the first sentence, so. I don't think it's gonna, anybody that wants to take a car home for $3, I don't think that works quite that way.
Yeah, option 2 says cents per mile based on the standard mileage rate, so, depending upon how far away they live, would probably be more than $3.
Right.
All personal miles, including community miles for the drivers. So that way, that means that they are able to use the vehicle for personal use too, though. For all personal miles.
I'm just asking, so.
Because I know that's how some of the industry does it. I mean, farm inspectors, they have a car, but it ends up being like a $6,000 or $7,000 perk.
Right.
They're added to they're getting a 1099 for that.
Yeah.
So, that's not real pleasant. Get that at the end of the year. Car.
Thank you, Eric, appreciate it.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Show Phil opposed, motion carries.
The last resolution is a resolution authorizing acceptance and appropriation of American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 funds.
Someone would like to move it? Lisa, second by Ian.
Yeah, I guess I have a question concerning how much, where we're distributing this money into the different categories here. And I still believe that I believe recreation needs money, of course, but I'm not so sure I'm so enthusiastic about $1.5 million. Fine with $1 million. I'm looking at it like, could we put 500,000 of it for infrastructure repairs? I mean, we've got some infrastructure out there that needs help, needs addressing, and maybe we could get to it a little bit quicker using this and coming off, that way it takes care of just like the Harrisburg bridges there. There's one, but we got another one, people are traveling 15, 20 miles out of their way to get to work. So, I mean, we probably could use some of that funding that way to help with those type of situations where it pops up. But I'm sure there's a lot of them, if you went and drove around, that would pop up. So I'm just looking to change that number, drop it down, still be quite a significant amount in recreation, and still give us a little something to, put forward with infrastructure repair. That's up for debate.
Yeah, and it will be up for debate still, because none of this is set in stone. We're just,
Once it gets past this, usually it's never seen again.
It's all gonna be spent by resolution.
you could take out that whole clause, it wouldn't affect what we're doing right now. I mean, I expect we'll go through each item, piece by piece before we appropriate anything.
Any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So Greg opposed, motion carries. Do we have any other business?
I do.
Bill?
Ryan, when we were talking about renovation projects, and you kept saying, we got the money, and I had to go through it to see that we had the money, and I did, and it worked. And at some point, you said, well, you did your due diligence, and now you prove to us, or whatever. Well, based on that, I think that regarding double play, I think if we're even thinking about spending that amount of money, that we should do our due diligence on that. And I would like to make a motion that we hire an outside person to audit Double Play's books for the last 5 years. It might do the same thing that you did for me, or it might not, but we don't know, and we need to know if we're going to be spending that amount of money. I'm not necessarily for spending that amount of money, don't get me wrong there, but I think to do the right thing, we should audit their books and we should have an independent person doing it.
That's a motion.
That's a motion.
Do I have a second? Andrea? Any discussion, further discussion?
I would just add that I had a similar discussion with Double Play, where I asked for their most recent audit, and they're a not-for-profit that's below the threshold of needing annual audits. So they didn't have a recent audit. I think it's a good idea to verify what they, they're basically what we have is their annual reports, and we can verify what they've got. So we probably would have made them do it anyway, so.
Well, it'll help us in our decision-making, and they need to open the books, to someone independent, in my opinion. You think so, Larry?
I'm fine with that. We're also verifying their
Cash
commitment.
That was a good idea.
Larry, just a couple comments if you'll allow it. And I mean, Phil's motion was, I think, somewhat defined. I think you said 5 years in an audit. So what I wanted to just add in, there's levels of service. An audit is the highest, a review is in the middle, and a compilation is the lowest. An audit, I'm sure they've not had an audit, as Ryan said. I've never seen one, and for the size of organization they are, I can't imagine why they would have had one. An audit is gonna be $3,000-$4,000 per year, maybe at the lowest, and it's gonna go up from there. So I'm not sure how an engagement would happen if they're gonna audit the last 5 years. I don't know how a firm would charge for that, but just so you know, typically $3,000 to $4,000 a year minimum.
We're talking $6.5 million that,
I'm just
so
giving you some
$3,000
information.
is nothing to me.
I'm just giving you some information. I think my last thought is that, Double Point's gonna have to agree to that. You can't just ask an auditor to go audit their books and they're gonna have to agree to that.
Sure. And if they won't, well, that might say something too, but you know what?
So you're saying $3,000 to $4,000 a year, so that'd be
It
$15,000.
depends on how a firm might structure the engagement. I can't guarantee you they would charge that amount per year. It's also kind of unusual to go look back 5 years, but maybe, I'm not sure how a firm would approach that. Just information.
What would a review, just the cheap option right now, because if we don't even have, we could just be throwing away $15,000 if we're not even seriously considering.
I mean,
this.
I think
Maybe that's something for later on.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that I can answer that question. It's certainly something you have to talk with an audit firm and ask them.
What about a review by a CPA firm? Would that be anything you could think about? So
Are you asking me?
instead of a full-blown audit, would a review by a CPA accounting firm suffice?
I should think so, I guess, yeah.
Maybe now, we can do an audit later, because maybe if we just open their books and look at their profit and loss for these years, we may come away from it thinking we don't want anything to do with this.
Well, I'm, having been through audits with the LCDC, I understand what Eric is trying to say. There's a lot of detail in an audit that is really not relevant to this question. And it costs a lot of money to get that stuff done, where they go back and track where the money came from, what cash on hand, where did that come from?
It's gonna be a lot of work for them too right now.
I think part of what we're looking at is almost like a credit rating.
Well, I think I understand what, Phil just wants to affirm that their statement of assets and liabilities is accurate.
Right.
So,
Are they paying their bills or whatever, that's something we should do if we're
Right.
even beginning to think about it, in my opinion.
so if you're, would you be willing to change your motion from audit to review by a CPA firm? Would that?
Yeah, as long as it was independent, sure.
Financial review of the books and records and debt ratio of Double Play.
You got away with words, John.
That's the second bit?
No, I have a question.
Okay, I need a second first. Andrea, okay, go ahead.
Last month, I believe we were talking about, they presented us with a plan of operations going forward and income, what have you. I'd be more interested in that than with their last 5 years, because that's what's gonna pay this off moving forward. So if that could be included in it somehow.
Well,
I'm not a CPA, I can look at that all day long and I can't tell you. I think it's got good places and bad places, but I'd rather have somebody that does that for a living take a look at that along with it. But,
the last 5 years would give us a financial track record. That,
No, I'm not against what you want to do, I'm just saying in addition to that.
in addition to
The last
If it
5 years
helps
will tell us
Phil
what
to
they
feel
did
more
in the
comfortable.
last 5 years. What's the future look like as far as their income?
So maybe in addition to review of the 5 years, you would want the accountant,
Yeah,
the
'cause
firm
some
to
assumptions have
look
gotta be
at
made.
the feasibility of the plan going forward as they've related and their ability to meet those obligations.
But I think we even asked Ryan to go back and talk to them about some of it already, so, and I don't know if you've done that yet or not.
We have, so before we even got it ready for this level of discussion, one of the things that I had asked for specifically was an operating budget. Let's say the facility's built, can you guarantee you keep the lights on?
Yeah.
And they did provide actually, what in my opinion is a very detailed operating budget. And basically what they've done is they've gone through and identified each space that would be in the new facility, and they've programmed that out for a year, more or less. So if you've got a gymnasium with 2 half courts, you know, how much programming can you do with the staff that you have and try to build a budget based on that? So I think their budget is quite reasonable, but if we've got, you know, folks coming in and take a look at their last 5 years, we could easily ask them to look at the budget they've put together going forward and have an opinion on that. Sure.
Good idea.
So we're gonna change the motion to include that. Okay, do I have a second for that? Andrew,
Second.
Thank you.
anything else? Greg?
Just so that you know, I've got a correspondence, a letter from Betty Latham. She is she's with the Society for Preservation of West Martinsburg Church. She's the historic, basically like the historian for Martinsburg. She's 7th generation Martinsburg resident. The Society for the Preservation for the West Martinsburg Church has an urgent need to restore the steeple on this historic building. This past year has been devastating. We have been unable for any of our annual.
If I could just interrupt you.
Gotta get
Does
this on settled
this have
first.
anything to do with double play?
No,
There's a motion on the floor.
we forgot to vote on it.
Okay.
All right.
All in favor, move back in double play.
Yeah.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now,
So I'm looking for some financial assistance for the steeple repair. The whole thing, the whole project would be, she told me, $65,000, which they've got it in phases. And their phase 1 to keep the structure from deteriorating worse than it already is $26,000. I was looking for $26,000. I was looking for more like $10,000 to help them with this. It's the church was built in 1840, and it's one of the oldest structures in the town of Martinsburg. It's on a historic registry, and it's just, the town has already painted the church and done the roof repair and painted the roof. Now, their project this year is to repair the town hall, the little town hall in West Martinsburg, the foundation repair, and that's gonna cost somewhere around $30,000. So the town of Martinsburg has actually stepped up to the plate financially and has, as Jerry puts it, skin in the game, because they've done a lot of work on this, and they keep their historical areas up. The cemetery right next door is on the registry. You know, it's just, they just need some help. You know, they haven't been able to have so many of their social events that's brought in. Betty paid 10 wreaths and sold them through the new mercantile store up there in West Martinsburg for $500, and that all went into this for funding of the steeple repair. They did get the bell down, so that's not there, but it's starting to leak. So now it's, you know, slowly gonna deteriorate the whole building. We really can't lose our history, because we learn from our history. That's how we know where we're going forward.
So I remember this conversation previously, when they were rebuilding that church, and I thought we had contributed to.
No, that was the town hall, the Martinsburg Town Hall. We contributed to the roof repair on that. We've never done anything to this West Martinsburg church or anything in West Martinsburg.
Okay.
So they're just asking for some assistance, that's all. And I think it's worth it because it's historic. We have to keep our history. If we don't, it falls apart. And nobody will ever know it was there.
So are you making a motion?
I'm making a motion to
How much you asking for?
How much?
10,000. Or less, if you wanna go less, Phil, that's fine.
You know what, I was
Pick a number.
I'd like 10.
Jeez.
So do I have a second for Craig's motion? Ron, okay. Discussion.
I'd like to get more information. I mean, maybe this could go through, would this be appropriate for finance and rules or general service? This kind of thing. Like, who owns the church? What's it being used for? I think that would make it a little easier. I like what you're saying, Greg. Like, I think in principle, I agree with you, but I'd want to
No, I
know.
don't think they're using it for anything because of what could happen with the way it's in their district there.
Any prospects it could be used in the future.
Oh, absolutely. They hold the socials there. That's what they do. They hold their socials there. They have
So-
extreme social.
Whatever, is there an association that governs it right now?
Yeah, the West Martinsburg Preservation Society. That's who's asking, who's requesting this.
Would it fall under this, either the facade program that we kind of,
That's what I'm wondering.
That's a good question.
The
which is
facade,
not new.
the facade program as we have designed it reflects a very similar program in Livingston County, which sets up defined downtown zones that are eligible. I'm not sure the Four Corners of Martinsburg would qualify as a downtown zone.
As a store,
Up to the board. I mean, we're making this program up, so if you want to qualify, you can.
Is this something that we intended community development to help with?
I I would leave that up to the board. Community development can be anything that.
That was kind of open-ended, right?
Yeah.
For good projects.
Sure, sure.
How urgent is it, Greg? I mean, is it something we could wait and put it through that stimulus money here?
well,
They need it done before winter.
yeah, they'd like to do, get some repairs done before the snow, because it's starting to leak already.
Sure.
And it was repaired 2 years ago. Just temporary, just a quick fix when they painted the roof.
So would you be willing to withdraw the motion on the floor and move forward with referring it to the Finance and Rule Committee for research and discussion?
I don't see why it can't be done right now. I mean, there's not much more to say.
Or we can take a motion to table it and refer it to Finance and Rules.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second on the motion to table?
I'll second that, just, because if we give 10,000, 10,000 isn't gonna do anything. I guess I just want some more information.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed to tabling it and referring it to next committee?
Yeah, me.
Okay, so Greg opposed.
I don't know how
And
much more information you can get.
we'll refer it to the committee for research and discussion.
Invite them out.
Hmm?
Invite them out. Finance and rules.
Okay, do we have any other business? We need a motion for executive session. Okay. Motion to adjourn. Dick, second by Ron, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
And
We're adjourned.
Yes.
We would be held to pledge and sing at 11:25.
Because we're in home. Because we got.
It was right.
I may.